Redditors who were poor as kids. What things were normal to you when you were poor growing up? Fast food being a massive treat. Intense anxiety whenever school would force us to buy things, like class t-shirts or field trip admission costs, even if it was $6. I remember my dad saying something like public education is free, we don't have to give them any money, so there was no point even trying to get money from them. So embarrassing. I never missed anything though, must have had good teachers or other parents looking out for the poor kids. Pizza day and chocolate milk day at school. We always pay double so some other kid can have what my kids get. My wife remembers never getting pizza or chocolate milk at school, and if I can prevent another kid from knowing what that is, like I will do it. Edit. Thanks for whoever gave me gold, but please save your money and donate it to kids who don't have lunch or something like that. I grew up in Serbia in the 90s, very poor when hyperinflation hit, eating a bread and sugar sandwich, only being able to afford milk for my little brother. 1 glass per day, my dad giving me enough money so I could go to the store to buy a single banana bread loaf, literally costing 2 cents, wearing the same clothes for a week straight, taking a shower once a week, and having to boil your water in a large pot, sharing a school bag with my sister. Our house had nylon and duct tape where some windows were supposed to be. This especially sucked during storms, planting and harvesting our own vegetables, sealing some house cracks with mud, walking everywhere and asking for rides because we didn't own a car, firewood, and only one room of the house having heat. Coca-Cola was a luxury. If I saw someone drinking Coke, I thought they were rich. I'll add more when I remember more. Being poor sucked, and so did the Yugoslavian civil wars. In relation to the hyperinflation, my dad always says you get your paycheck, and by the time you arrived home it was worth half. Not wearing shoes in the summer. You got shoes for school. They lasted until the end of the school year. Then you went barefoot. It's not as bad as it sounds, because we lived in the country. Also, your feet get calloused pretty fast. I got my first summer job when I was 12 or so, and anytime I managed to build up a nice chunk of change, my mom would borrow the money. She always paid it back, I think, but it wasn't an option. She just took it when needed. Powdered milk. Noack. My parents sometimes skipped meals so us kids could eat. Clothes were hand-me-downs or from Walmart, and only for school starting. No wastefulness. Rarely eat out. No name brands. Antenna TV. No cable. No healthcare or health insurance. No dentist visits. I started working and buying my own clothes at age 14. Our home was falling apart around us. My dad tried to keep it together, sort of. Oh, and my parents never being home because they each worked multiple jobs. I could go on. Buying the absolute cheapest item there was of something. Wearing shoes with holes in them constantly. Dressing super weird because everything was handed down to you. I remember wearing my brother's clothes and undies. I'm a girl, BTW lol. I also remember wearing my cousin's old and beat up shoes to school because mine was literally broken into 2 pieces. Her feet was bigger than mine, but I don't have any options but to wear it. It was flaky, it looks like Chelsea boots, and dusty. My dad was tearing up when he saw it, but I don't really care during that time because it was my dream to wear a boots. Lol. He promised to buy me a good shoes if he can. After a month he got a side gig and he bought me a pair of new one. Now we are in a comfortable situation and appreciate all small things. Blocking off whole sections of the house in winter to save money by heating only 1 or 2 rooms. Heating water on the stove so you could bathe with hot water. Buying marked down meat that was graying or slightly green in spots. Burnt scars on the back of my legs for trying to stand too close to the kerosene heater in the winter. Paper food stamps. My mom sending me to the neighbors' houses to ask to borrow things like dish soap. Hiding any nice present you got from wealthier family members because people would bitch about you having it if they ever saw you using food stamps. When I was 8 or 9, I got a really nice metal model airplane. It was expensive and really nice, like a manufacturer's model. My uncle gave it to me. He had a friend in the aviation industry and got it from him. I was so proud of that airplane. Anyway, I made the mistake of bringing it outside to play with. A cop came cruising along and started quizzing me about it. He kept asking where I took it from. that he had report of a theft of an airplane like mine, that I need to tell him where I took it from. I broke down and started crying and actually handed it to him. My younger brother ran into the house and got my mom. She lit his ass up. I got my plane back, but my mom told me I couldn't take it outside anymore. After the way that cop treated me and made me feel, I never wanted to play with it again. To this day, if I have something nice, I don't tell anyone about it. That you didn't get clothing or shoes that you didn't absolutely need. It's foreign to me to this day to buy a piece of clothing I don't require but just want. Me too. And I hold on to clothing while they pass the point where they are not wearable. My shoes get holes before I buy new ones, and it is not necessary anymore. I'm not rich, but dang, I can have decent shoes. Just can't get rid of them. Insert. The flip side of that is I fix things instead of buying new. Actual food stamps that looked like postage stamps. I thought that was how everyone bought food. Also, stocking up on V05 shampoo, like we were preppers. It apparently goes on sale once a year. My mom made my brother and I go into the store to buy gum with those paper food stamps. The gum at the time was 25 cents, so we'd get 75 cents back. I think she used to buy smokes with the actual money. Another funny little story. Went to Walmart to get some food with my brother, and we had food stamps. We went to the self-checkout to buy the food, since we were embarrassed to use the food stamps at a human cashier. So the machine asks us how we were going to be paying. We selected food stamps, and I swear the machine said, "You have selected increase volume to maximum food stamps," like it was trying to shame us. The first time I remember consciously realizing that we were poor was when I was 6 and went to the doctor because an eye infection had turned into sepsis. When asked who our family doctor was, and I had to reply the emergency room. The reason the question was asked was because the PA of the year a week earlier had misdiagnosed it as pinky and sent us home saying everything would get better in a week or so. Actually, I had an infected cut on my cornea and it was spreading into my eye socket and bloodstream. The doctor was incredulous that nobody had even actually looked at the eye yet, as within half a second of using that eye light scope thingy doctors use to look in eyes and ears showed him what was wrong. I mean, I knew we didn't have much money a good while before that, but that was the first time I realized just how crippling poverty really is. That because my parents didn't have enough green paper slips in a bank, that I might lose my eye, and that the lack of those little green slips was going to have a long-term negative impact on my future. Poor is relative, but never buying a brand name of anything if there was an off-brand option that was 5 cents cheaper, even if it was far inferior. I'm reading all these responses, realizing how relative poor is. Using the neighbor's hose when they weren't home to fill buckets to flush the toilet. Our power usually stayed on. My mom worried the neighbors would call CPS if the lights were off, so they let other utilities go first. Like others here, no eat or much food. Every winter I hoped for snow so my dad could make snow cream. Fresh snow, sugar, and milk. Such a treat as a kid. A single kerosene heater that would stink smoke the whole house out on the few nights a year we could afford to run it. Sleeping on the bathroom floor in summer because it was too dangerous to sleep on the balcony. Bologna and tomato sauce sandwiches 3 times a day. One pair of hand-me-down shoes that I was never allowed wear unless it was a special occasion. The only item in our house that used electricity was the clock radio in my parents' bedroom, and it only got turned on when they went to bed. Christmas consisted of receiving the clothes and school supplies for the next year. All your friends at school aren't hungry and share their lunch with you, and you never work out why. You discover chocolate milk and it literally blows your mind. McDonald's comes to town and 3 years later a friend's dad is driving a bunch of kids home from the game and asks you what you want, and you say nothing. Thanks, because you know better than to ask for anything, and because you have literally no idea what they actually sell there. Entire weekends spent wandering around town looking for coins so that you can get 50c worth of mixed lollies. Regular visits from the government lady who asks you a bunch of weird questions. Mum crying all the time. You get $10 from somewhere and it never even occurs to you to spend it. You give it to your parents. You never ever want for anything because there is no point. Not needing much and then thrift store shopping when we did need. A couple times a year we would go visit family in bigger cities and be so excited to hit up the nicer thrift stores because that's where the rich people donated their clothes. I still shop at thrift stores for a lot of things. The police would come into our neighborhood, fill up the block with their cars, open their trunks full of toys, and give them out to all the kids. Realized after we moved that I stopped seeing this phenomenon and I asked my mom why they didn't do it in our new neighborhood. Just straight up, oh yeah, it was a sort of charity thing because we were poor and our neighbors were poor. Everyone there was just poor. Apostrophe. 1. Bread out of toaster plus syrup equals French toast. 2. Stale potato chips plus ketchup equals French fries. When my parents made rice for dinner, I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back on it, I now realize when I ate a bowl of rice with butter, things were tight for my parents. I didn't think twice about it. We are all doing okay now. Still being very hungry after lunchtime in school. I remember having some pretzels and a small sandwich, while the other kids had Lunchables and cookies and all that junk. I also was recently reminiscing with a childhood friend of mine, and I mentioned how I miss my old house, and she said I don't. Your house was kinda dumpy. I took that like a dagger. Being the only kid who didn't have a snack during snack time in elementary school, the teachers kept a little snack jar for me and a few other kids, but I never took any because I felt bad. My mom smiling and telling us everything's fine, and then sneaking off to the bathroom or her bedroom to cry because we'd ask her insensitive questions relating to our financial situation. Sharing a room and bathroom with my dad and sister. We spent a little over a year in this arrangement. Had just a little 14-inch TV, bunk beds on the side of the room and a queen bed in the middle with one big dresser and a couple tubs we used for clothes. I really thought it was fun all the time I got to spend around my dad. Wasn't necessarily poor my entire childhood, but looking back I know this was taxing for a father to take on by himself. Now he's living it up. 1510 good dad. Anyone have to share a room with siblings and or parents?